Now, News Talk Radio CJAD 800 gives you On the Record with Jason Rockman.
On the record on CJAD, public figures and their musical taste. My guest this week is a Montreal impresario who's been doing promotion for a long time and just has announced his retirement after 50 years. Sheldon Kagan, how are you?
Oh, great. Happy to be here.
I'm glad you're here because we've known each other for a bit. And I remember when I started this show, you had said to me, we really should get together and have a conversation because I've got a lot of stories. And I figured, with this announcement, what better time to sit back and reflect on a career that you've had here, bringing in shows than now.
Of course, and there's everything I've done has been music related. So any of these stories, I'll have a song. So it's just a perfect reason to be here. Of course.
At the end of the day, I know you do. You've made a career out of promoting music. Playing music, but at the end of it, it started with a kid who was just a big music fan, right?
For sure. I was 14 years old listening to radio announcers like you in Montreal radio and saying, wow, this is incredible. These are songs. This is fun. This is happy. This is what I want to be doing. Yeah.
When you look back, say the first album that you ever bought, what was it?
It was really an album by the Dave Clark Five.
Okay.
Glad All Over. I never had to buy too many records because I worked really hard to get the records from the radio station.
So you had you had good promo.
Yeah, for sure.
What made you want to get that record?
I heard the announcer at that time, Dave Boxer, play the song, and I said, "Wow, this is an incredible song. I mean, I've got to get it." And I think that day I went out to Eaton's in the record department and said, "Look, I want to buy this record," and that was my first record. And
if you had to pick a song from that record, which one would it be?
Probably "Glad All Over."
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's play it right now. "Glad All Over" on CJAD. the Dave Clark 5, glad all over on CJAD. My guest this week, Sheldon Kagan. You've brought in a lot of people and you to this city, and you were one of the first people to bring in a lot of people to this city. What's it like when you look back and you put together a list like you did for this show of the names that you've been involved with? Do you sit back and go, wow?
I really do, because every time I had the idea of bringing in a performer was a new experience. And in those early years, it wasn't that easy. Right now, if somebody wants to bring in Madonna, they go to Google and you'll find out who her manager, her agent, everything is right there. But
right.
In the 60s when I started, there was no Google, there was no search engines. So I had to do an incredible amount of research to find out how to reach these artists in New York and LA at that time.
Do you remember the first concert that you brought in yourself when you took all the financial risk?
Yeah, it was Dizzy Gillespie and Gene Krupa. It was in Place des Arts.
Okay.
And I contacted the agent, and I was a kid. I was, 18 years old, and here I was talking to this man in New York and telling him that I'm going to do a show at Place des Arts. And the first thing he said to me, he says, "How many shows have you done, Mr. Kagan?" And I said, "Well, to be honest, this is my first show, but I've been in the music industry for a couple of years, and
a couple of years,
I'm gonna do you proud." And he says, "Okay, but you understand? I mean, I need 50% up front and 50% to the performer, and you've got to book the venue and do the advertising." And I said, "Oh, of course, I have it all under control. There's no problem." And I did that first show.
Did you have it under control?
No.
So how does an 18-year-old kid come up with the 50% of the deposit?
Well, because at that stage, I had my DJ company that I built up, and I had DJs working for me. So all the money that was coming in from my DJ company and my local band bookings were going into my company. So, yes, I did have enough money for the deposit.
Yeah.
I did have enough money for the deposit of Place des Arts. Did I have the balance to pay the artist? No, but I was going to be selling tickets.
So you had to hustle.
Yeah, my tickets were $3.50 to $6.50 per ticket at that time.
Okay.
I had 2,963 tickets for sale, and I did about 2/3 of a house. So I did well. I probably made $5,000, $6,000, $7,000.
Really?
It was a chance. I mean, I knew that I was going to make it happen, and I pulled it off. And that was the first show of what was going to be many, many more after that.
Do you remember the year of that?
1971.
1970. That was the year I was born.
See? So that's two important reasons to remember the year.
And when you bring in an artist like Dizzy Gillespie, obviously you're a fan too, right?
I wasn't even a fan.
So you weren't a fan?
Stage. No,
okay.
because
so it's you looked at this as purely a business.
Oh, for sure, because at that stage, the music that was coming out was the Mersey scene, was the Beatles and the Beach Boys and the Rolling Stones. But the music of the first shows that I was bringing in were all music from the 40s and 50s.
Okay.
So I had known nothing about this. I had got a few of the records. I did a little bit of research, but again, you couldn't do it online. So I felt there was a market for middle-aged sort of people at that stage, maybe from between 40 and 60 years old, that would like to come out and listen to the big bands and the jazz groups, but the only places they can do it in Montreal at that time were clubs, like the Esquire, and so for me it was definitely a chance, but I knew there was an opportunity, and I said, no, look, I'm going to go for it, and that's what I did.
When we come back, more with Sheldon Kagan. This is On the Record on CJAD.
On the Record with Jason Rockman.
On the Record on CJAD, public figures and their musical taste. My guest, Sheldon Kagan, who's just announced his retirement from his music career after 50 years in the promotions business. When you look back, you gave me a list of all these songs that you wanted to play. But what I like about you is that you can give me stories from bringing all these people in, which
for sure.
Which is a lot different than a lot of people I've had. One name that just jumps out right away is George Benson. Tell me about George Benson.
Well, my first show, as I mentioned, was Dizzy and Gene Krupa. My second show was the Glenn Miller Orchestra and Jackie Mason, which was a huge success. This time I sold all 3,000 tickets. So then I proceeded ahead and I booked Buddy Rich and Woody Herman.
Okay.
Again, selling the tickets for that famous $3.50 to $6.50. And I was sold out. So now it's my third show. I mean, life is great. I am a concert promoter. There's nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
The show was on a Sunday at Place des Arts. On Friday, I got a call from a man who introduced himself as Buddy Rich's road manager and saying, Mr. Kagan, I've got a sad story to tell you. Buddy Rich last night had slipped a disc going on rehearsal for the Johnny Carson show, and I have to tell you he's not coming to Montreal tomorrow to play your concert. Oof. Whoa, hang on, sir. Don't get off the phone. What do I do? He said, I can't help you. You got to call New York on Monday and make arrangements. So I can't notify the public, don't come to Place des Arts. So I sent one of my guys off to New York City, hoping that maybe he can find a performer that was playing in the Village that wasn't working on the Sunday night, because Sunday night some of the rooms were closed.
Yeah.
And he called me and said, look, I'm sitting here with a really incredible person. His name is George Benson, and he's ready to come to Montreal with us, meet tomorrow, and we just got to pay him $1,500, get him the instruments he needs, and we got a deal.
Wow.
I said, well, let's do it. So that night at Place des Arts, I went out and advised everyone about what had happened. Woody Herman is here. Buddy Rich couldn't make it. We've got an up-and-coming guitarist here who's incredible, encouraging people to stay. Of course, I said, anybody that wants a refund, feel free, go to the box office now and get a refund. About 35% of the people took refunds, which financially still worked out good for me because I paid George Benson so much less than I was paying Buddy Rich.
Right.
And, I mean, he blew people away. Months later, I contacted the agent, who was the official agent for George Benson, and said, look, you know, this is the story. I'd like to bring him back to Montreal. And he said, well, sure, I'll be very happy to come back to Montreal, but it's going to cost you $150,000. Whoa! So that was...
so much for loyalty, eh?
Yeah, there was no loyalty there. But I still bump into people saying how they can't remember for their less than $10 how they saw George Benson at Place des Arts. So that was... And he was a great man. He was really nice. We spent a lot of time in Montreal. Real good human being as well as phenomenal performer.
Why don't we play... you mentioned you want to play Breezin', and I like that.
Yeah, I love Breezin'.
Let's play Breezin'. It's George Benson on CJAD. George Benson and Breezin' on CJAD. My guest, Sheldon Kagan. It's funny when you say that, he wanted to come back a little bit later. The price was like 10 times or 100 times more.
Yeah, big difference.
And I imagine that's something that a promoter goes through often, right?
Well, for sure, because, sometimes you want to take a chance with a performer and bring them in and hope that it's going to be a great show and they're going to get a big audience, and the next time you bring them back, you're going to pack the hall. It works that way sometimes, but other times the performer takes off and then it's like, Sheldon who? It's business.
Exactly. And I think from what I've learned from speaking to other people that have done this for a living, you have to look at it as a business. You can't get emotionally involved.
No, it's a little like the stock market. You take a chance, and when I do a show, I mean, there's two criteria. One of them, the performer has got to be great. I mean, I don't care how much money I can make if the performer is not great. But also, it's a business. I want to make money.
When we come back, more with Sheldon Kagan. This is On the Record on CJAD.
This is On the Record with Jason Rockman.
On the Record on CJAD, public figures and their musical taste. My guest, Sheldon Kagan. You have this great story that you want to tell me, that you wrote to me about, that involves Clive Davis.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Tell me about this.
In 1972, I was organizing a winter carnival for Vanier College.
Yeah.
And I booked at that stage Delaney and Bonnie, Billy Preston, and John Hammond to perform. And just before the concert, my secretary said, "You've got a call from Clive Davis, who was president of CBS at that stage, and he wants to speak to you personally."
Now, Clive Davis, I mean, he's an industry legend.
Yeah, I mean, Whitney Houston, I mean...
the guy's, you could play connect the dots with so many people, and it'll go back to him.
For sure.
Did you, at that point, know who Clive Davis was?
I did,
okay.
But it was just like...
Who?
Why is he calling me?
Yeah.
I took the phone.
Okay.
Because even then I had to, have call screen because so many people are reaching out to me and I just can't take everything out, know. And he said, "Mr. Kagan, my name is, I'm president of Columbia Records and I want to ask you a personal favor." I said, "Okay."
When Clive Davis wants a personal favor, you listen, right?
Go for it, sir. And he told me he had a relatively new group called Kenny Loggins and Jim Messina.
Yeah.
And he wanted to put them in a smaller market like Montreal before playing New York and Chicago and Boston, because he wanted himself to go see them and see how they would be perceived by the audience.
Okay.
And he said, "One of my acts is working for you called John Hammond, and I would love to take John Hammond and replace them with Kenny Loggins and Jim Messina, and I'm going to charge you just $500, which is like a token amount. It's even way less than you were paying John Hammond, and I'd really appreciate it." So what do I say? Of course,
you said
let's
yes.
go for it, sir. And here again was another one of those incredible stories because, they came to Montreal, blew everybody away. I mean, standing ovation after ovation. I mean, people just loved them. Great, great concert. And here I said to myself, well, okay, I'm going to reach out and bring them back to Montreal. I did that. I actually tried to reach Clive Davis directly months later, feeling, I had just done him a favor.
Yeah.
Could he just maybe reciprocate a little bit and get me a couple of great dates for him? And couldn't reach him. They directed me to the agents for Kenny Loggins, Jim Messina, and found out that, nope, they're not going to play for $500, but we can probably do it for a minimum of $150,000 plus a percentage. I said, "Oh, well, thank you very much. I'll think about it." So this side of things wasn't making me feel very good, I got to tell you.
But you still have the claim to being the first people to bring them into the city.
Yeah, and I got the contract, and it's I even sent the contract off to their agent, just thinking, come on, guys, look, you just paid for $500 for me. Now you want $150,000, but nobody was going to hear a word. That was it.
You wanted to play "Your Mama Don't Dance"?
Yeah, that's a real great song.
Let's do that right now on CJAD.
Your mama don't dance and your daddy don't rock and roll. because your mama don't dance and your daddy don't rock and roll. Your mama don't dance and your daddy don't rock and roll. When evening rolls around and it's time to go to town, where do you go? To rock and roll. And it's all because your mama don't dance and your daddy don't rock and roll. Your mama don't dance and your daddy don't rock and roll. When evening rolls around and it's time to go to town, where do you go? To rock and roll. Where do you go? To rock and roll. Where do you go? To rock and roll.
Loggins and Messina on CJAD, Your Mama Don't Dance. Well, on that bill as well, Delaney and Bonnie, Billy Preston. Tell me a bit about Billy Preston.
I didn't really have too much rapport, but he of course he did Bangladesh. He was an amazing keyboard player. I tried to become friends, at least to have some sort of rapport with the performers, Some of them, were into themselves, of course, that's the nature,
Yeah.
Billy Preston was just a nice guy. He was easy to deal with, very not demanding, very little writer. Some of the performers came up with 20, 30-page writers. Luckily, I didn't have to experience too many of those.
And I imagine when you're if people don't know what we're talking about, a writer, because it's a terminology that in the music business we understand, but a writer is what a performer will ask for when they show up to a town, a prerequisite that they need in their dressing room. And sometimes it involves not just things in the dressing room, but how they want the room dressed, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, when you sign the contract, it's basically a very simple one-page contract. Says the date, the time, the place, what you're paying, and how you're paying, and that's it.
Yeah.
But then comes the writer, and the writer could be 3 pages. When I brought Dionne Warwick to Montreal, her original writer was 23 pages.
And I'm gonna have to ask you about that a little later, because I know that I remember actually speaking with you about that. And
so writers are something the public isn't aware of, but for the promoter, it really could be tricky. Some of it makes great sense. I mean, what lights you want, what sounds you need, the technicians you need. This is really important. But when it gets down to the
hospitality, right?
The hospitality, what kind of champagne you like, and the ashtrays, and the flavor ice cream, and some of it gets to be really something.
And the thing is, I imagine when you deal with certain artists, and if they're finicky, they can make your life miserable because of that, right?
And they command it, and in many cases, I mean, this is it. Sometimes you can negotiate with their manager. Sometimes it's like, this is the writer, sign and provide everything to the T.
Yeah. When we come back, more with Sheldon Kagan. This is On the Record on CJAD.
Great songs, great conversation. On the Record with Jason Rockman.
On the Record on CJAD, public figures and their musical taste. My guest, Sheldon Kagan. Your first concert you ever went to was the Beatles at the Montreal Forum.
Yeah, I actually won those tickets on a radio show.
Okay.
So that was a great concert to go. You can't do much better than that in the early 60s.
You obviously have great memories from that show?
Yeah, I have memories. I have all kinds of pictures. I was so far away, and with the camera I had, you couldn't even know what performer was on the stage. but it was fun, and that really got me exciting. Now I'm saying, look, I mean, there's thousands of people here, everyone's screaming, they're going crazy. I mean, shows, concerts, this is where it's all at.
Yeah, And when you're an 18-year-old kid bringing in concerts like you were bringing in and then making money like that, it's got to I guess it's a bit of a double-edged sword, right? It can be a good thing, and at the same time it can be a bad thing because it's like gambling.
Oh, it is. My mom used to talk, and it's funny, I just went to see her last weekend in Toronto. She's 91, and we brought up the same subject. She didn't like to come see some of my concerts at Place des Arts because she didn't like to see the red seats. What do you think she meant by that, Jim?
The red seats?
Yeah, she said, I don't like coming to your shows because I don't like seeing the red seats.
The empty seats.
Yeah, if she walked into the back of Place des Arts and she saw red seats, her son wasn't making money.
So she would get nervous for you.
Yeah, and it was so nice, but it's a true story. All these years later, we just reminisced about the same thing.
That's funny.
I didn't like seeing the red seats either.
I'm sure you didn't. When you look at the Beatles and that first concert, so many people were into the Beatles at that time, and you looking at it from a different angle, not just a fan of the music, but an opportunity where you can get in on some of this and make a buck. What was I know your first concert that you brought in, but what was the first band you envisioned bringing into Montreal?
I would have liked to bring the Beatles back,
right?
But that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
For me it was, I had to decide. All my early concerts were more in that jazz and big band.
Yeah.
Because I saw niche, I saw market. It started really well. And I said, why rock the boat? Why switch to rock or funk or anything else? Let me go. It's working well.
Right, and that's a model that you kept your career, right?
I did, but as the years went on, I did other things. I did do some pop shows, but it really was, my heart was really into this kind of music more than anything else.
You brought in Bill Withers 3 times.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, as a person, he was wonderful. I used to pick up all the performers at the airport, just because I felt...
You pick them up yourself?
Myself personally.
Wow.
And I got to tell you, Jason, sometimes I owned vehicles that didn't warrant picking anybody up in. But I had a good buddy of mine, Derek, who was the manager of Hertz Rent-A-Car downtown. And I worked a deal with Hertz. I gave them some concert tickets for people that rented cars, and he gave me all the fancy cars.
So you would look like a big shot.
So I looked like the big shot. I went with the biggest, sportiest vehicles. And I remember picking up Bill Withers and, taking him out of the airport and getting in whatever fancy car I had. And he said, God, I hope I charged you enough because, if you drive a car like this, maybe I should have charged you more. And I said, look, it's a rental.
So that would, so if you brought him in 3 times, so obviously that relationship was one that was mutual.
It really was. He was a real good person to deal with. The people loved him. He was easy to deal with, didn't demand very much. And I brought him 3 consecutive years in a row to Place des Arts.
What song would you want to hear from Bill Withers?
Oh, Ain't No Sunshine, of course.
Works for me.
Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. It's not warm when she's away. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone, and she's always gone too long. Anytime she goes away, wonder this time where she's gone. Wonder if she's gone to stay. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone, and this house just ain't no home. Anytime she goes away. And I know, 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 I know. Hey, I ought to leave the young thing alone, but ain't no sunshine when she's gone. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. Only darkness every day. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone, and this house just ain't no home. Anytime she goes away. Anytime she goes away.
Bill Withers, Ain't No Sunshine on CJAD, just an iconic song.
Oh, it's an incredible song.
You do other things too, and you did other things as well besides bringing in concerts, right?
For sure. I started in the 60s as a DJ, expanded that to have 10 other guys working for me. Then I got to deal with bands. At one point, we were dealing with 10 to 15 high school party dances on every Friday night. It was just amazing how this all took off. Way back then, it was just like, I was a booking agency.
Right.
I had two people working. We just, answer. Sheldon Kagan can help you. Yeah, I'd like JB and the Playboys on this date, or MG and the Escorts, or the Rabble, or the Haunted, and we just booked them, sent them out. They did the gigs. It was amazing.
And you obviously, being in the business for 50 years, you saw and you have seen the business change.
Oh yeah, well that's it. Music changed drastically. Of course, there was the whole rock side of things, and then then of course disco came in, and that affected the bands in Montreal because at that point DJs were everywhere, and it was difficult for the bands. And I always said to my clients, if you have enough money, if the budget is there, you got to go with a band. You can't compare anything to a band. But if you don't have the budget, don't get a garage band or a mediocre band, get a phenomenal DJ.
Yeah.
And that's the truth, and I still believe the same thing right now.
Well, yeah, because there's nothing that's going to kill a room more than a bad band.
That's it. And some bands just, they just want to play for the sake of playing, and they shouldn't do these gigs. They shouldn't say, look, we're going to go out there for X amount of money, because they don't have it together. They should have stayed in the garage and enjoyed it themselves, but not go out and try and take a room full of people and give them bad music.
When you started off DJing, it was records.
Yeah.
When you saw records go away and CDs come, that affects a DJ company a lot more than people think.
For sure. Well, I had a huge investment in records,
Mm-hmm.
and me and my guys were carrying milk crates full of records, and then came the whole CDs, and then of course you're starting again, building up your library. So from a cost point, it was huge. I like records and I like CDs. There's this whole question, and now records are coming back to some extent, and people are talking about the quality, and some people said, oh my God, you just can't compare records to CDs, etc., etc. It really is personal.
Yeah, it's a personal taste.
I've done gigs, and I still do gigs, and I still go out myself as a DJ periodically because I love to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm using CDs, but my CD machines I can mix just like I did with my Technique 1200 turntables.
Right.
So I can scratch, I can change the pitch, I can do the same thing, and it's fun.
When we come back, more with Sheldon Kagan. This is On the Record on CJAD.
Mixing music and talk. On the Record with Jason Rockman.
On the Record on CJAD, my guest this week, Sheldon Kagan, who's just announced his retirement after 50 years in the music promotion business. Another thing that's been making the news for a while, I know it came out a couple of years ago, and I paid close attention because I'm a big vinyl fan. You have this huge record collection that you're looking to place in the right hands.
Yeah, I've collected over 22,000 records.
That's crazy.
All the way from 14 when I started.
Yeah.
It's sitting in my basement and part of it in a warehouse, and I'm going to give it away. And it's a really, really tricky decision of what to do with this. I mean, over the years, people have called me saying, oh, well, would you want to sell your records?
Right.
And, maybe 10 years ago, someone contacted me who was a legitimate collector. And I said, well, he said, just let me come and see.
Let me appraise it.
Yeah, and he came, and I just was counting the moments he was going to leave because, well, here, this one is great. I'll give you 50 cents.
Right.
And this one, I'll give you $10. And no, this is not going to happen.
Well, first of all, it's stressful because you know that if he's offering you $10 for one, it's probably worth 1,000.
Yeah.
And if he's offering you, so there's just that, and then it's just with 22,000 records, it's got to be the biggest pain in the butt.
I just wanted him out. I said, "I'm sorry, sir, but this meeting is over." So, I'm not going to sell it. That's
right.
for sure. But I want to give it away. But I'm concerned because whoever I give it to, what are they going to do with it?
Right.
So I'm thinking of a university, maybe a Montreal university, and maybe them making a library, the Sheldon Kagan library, and I'll give it with a couple of turntables and a couple of speakers.
Yeah.
That seems to make the most sense for me. But again, there's no guarantee. What if someone gets access to it and steals it all or breaks it all, you know?
Yeah.
So I keep putting it off, but time is moving, and I will have to make a decision in the near future and do something with the record collection.
There's this picture I saw when you were on the news the other day of you, I imagine as a young lad, with Rolling Stones 12 on 12.
Yeah, I was in my parents' bedroom while I was still living at home at 14.
Do you still have that record?
I do.
Really?
Yeah, and you know, that's the other thing, because these are records that I've won, I've bought, but also I arranged with the record companies to get me promo disc, because then what would happen is they would get me a record, I would play it at parties and give them some feedback.
And this would be something without a jacket, you know,
Yeah,
with
so
a handwritten
I
label.
have so much of that, and then I've got a small amount of records that were autographed by people to me.
Okay.
You know, like the Commodores and Dionne Warwick. So you know, those I'm sure I'm going to keep.
You want to keep, yeah.
And originally they were all in perfect order, but of course over the years now, you know, the order has a lot to be desired. So, I mean, 22,000 records with cases, and it's a lot of music, but somebody's got to really appreciate this, and I figure at a university, you know, students can go in, they can sit, they can listen. It'll be an incredible experience.
From that Rolling Stones album, 12 on 12, what would you want to hear?
Maybe Time Is on My Side.
Works for me. The Rolling Stones on CJAD. The Rolling Stones, Time's on My Side on CJAD, and that, of course, from the album 12 by 5, not 12
Yep.
by 12. My mistake. Released in 1964. So yeah, you were a young guy when you bought that.
That was the start.
You brought in Dionne Warwick, and I want to talk more about that. But another band that you brought in was the Commodores, and I was at that show. What was that like bringing them in? Because I imagine you were a lifelong fan.
It was a party.
Okay.
I mean, these guys were a gas. My son Barry, helps me with some of these concert pickups.
Yeah.
And he went down to pick them up, and they all got me on the speakerphone as they were heading back, from the airport, and they're laughing and giggling, and when I'm saying, "What's going on? Well, how come I'm not there, guys?"
Right.
But I headed down to the hotel and met them, and you cannot find better people than these. I mean, they've done it all. I mean, playing with Lionel Richie for most of their life had to be an unbelievable experience.
Yeah.
The songs that they recorded, the tours that they went on, they were just really fun. We had a really, really good time. And that night at Place des Arts, to my surprise, they did a little Sheldon Kagan talk saying, "Hey, he's such a nice promoter. Come on up, Sheldon."
Yeah, I remember they brought you out on stage because I was at that show.
Okay, so I got on stage, and they're sort of drumming and partying and high fives, and it was really fun.
And to see that, to have artists that are still appreciative and still respect the promoter is a nice thing.
Exactly, because they deal with so many people, and I guess there's all kinds of promoters. A certain percentage of them are just all about the money. Hey, just come do the gig, and then you can get out of town, and thank you very much. And but I'm not like that, and I guess that was something they realized. And we had a great time. My son was there, my daughter Marlene, my wife Linda. We all went backstage and took pictures and had drinks, and just fun.
Yeah, and I know for me, being a guy that has toured and been on the road, when you're received by a promoter and the hospitality is up to a certain level, it really, really makes the difference.
It really does. And their rider was somewhat demanding, but there was some flexibility. Like, one of the things they wanted to do is have fireworks.
Okay.
And the first thing I did is I got the rider onto the, City of Montreal Fire Department, and, said, well, you can do it, but you need a fire marshal there.
Yeah.
You need this amount of this. You need this amount of that. And then I got back to the agent and I said, is it going to affect the show if we don't have the fireworks? And he said, it's okay. But when I realized how much fun they were, maybe it would have been a fun part of the show.
When we come back, we're going to talk about someone that I know had a demanding rider, and I won't give that up who it is yet, but we're going to get to it.
Good.
This is On the Record on CJAD.
On the Record with Jason Rockman.
On the Record on CJAD, my guest Sheldon Kagan. We were talking before about riders, which there's, you get, when you're a promoter, you'll get a technical rider, and then you'll get the hospitality rider. And one of the people you brought in, Dionne Warwick, had an interesting rider.
Oh my goodness!
Tell me
did
about.
She have a rider.
Tell me about Dionne Warwick.
I thought I was going to write out a printer paper when I was printing it.
Okay.
Her rider was 32 pages long. Part of it, of course, the lighting plot and the sound plot and the technical, which I'm very happy with, and it was very professional. And she had a director of everything. So, when you wanted to talk sound, you talked to him, and, that was great. But then, we started reading, and she wanted 2 bottles of crystal champagne. Now,
Okay.
I know there's crystal champagne, but how much is crystal champagne? Do we know? So while we're reading it, my son Googled the SAQ and said, Dad, we better get over to the SAQ and buy some right away because the cheapest bottles are like $50, but there's also some at $1,000. And I said, well, we're not buying the 2 at $1,000, Barry.
No.
So the champagne we were able to work on, but Dionne's a huge smoker. Which is really surprising, for someone that's been singing all their life.
Yeah.
And of course she needed, smoking rooms, and she needed crystal ashtrays and very, very, very specific kinds of foods and specific kinds of drinks.
Okay.
And we had to spend a lot of time back and forth with her agent, coming up to some sort of compromise that didn't break the bank and also, would keep her happy. You don't want her to come to Montreal saying, oh my God, I'm working for this promoter and I don't have any of this and this and this.
Yeah.
So the rider was something. The thing with Dionne, there were so many fun stories because they came by train, and when they got off the train, my son was there picking them up, and the rider called for a specific number of vehicles, and the vehicles could not be white. I don't know why at that point, why not white? But that was fine. So I rented limos and everything they needed. And my son was at the train station, and he calls me and said, Dad, I got good news and bad news. Dion and her entourage are here, but they can't find her. She's missing. What do you mean she's missing? He said, well, don't worry. She was on the train, but she's missing now. And her cell is dead. And what happened is that because she was on the train so long and she couldn't smoke, when she got to the train station, she ran out onto Le Gauchetière to go have a cigarette and couldn't find her way back into the building.
Into the Windsor station.
So security had to find her on the street, believe it or not.
I'm looking for Dionne Warwick.
Yeah, that was something. We had a really interesting story to do with the limousine. I had booked her to stay at the Hyatt Regency Hotel, and we did a sound test the day of the concert, and we walked through the tunnel from the Hyatt to Place des Arts. When the way back, she said, look, Mr. Kagan, in the evening, I really want you to provide a limo. I don't want to walk through the tunnel because I'll be in my high heels. And so I said, okay, but it's going to take us like 1 minute to walk through the tunnel and like 5 minutes to get around by limo. But
you did it.
So I didn't really want to book another limo, and I had just bought this brand new Mercedes. So I said to Barry, let's just take her in my car tonight. He says, sure. So that evening, I had Oliver Jones and Renee Lee as opening acts for Dionne, which was incredible. And I offered Dionne to come earlier so she can see the opening act. And she said, well, I don't really want to.
Yeah.
So, okay, what am I going to say? So we made an arrangement to just cut it enough time before intermission for Barry to pick her up at the Windsor in my car and then take her to Place des Arts. It seems that I didn't realize until later when they showed up, when Barry met her in the lobby with her road manager, they walked toward the car, and Barry said, that's my dad's car. And Dionne said, wow, what a beautiful car. The road manager said, well, I hope that's not the car that we're going in. And Barry said, as a matter of fact, it is. And she said, well, we're not going because it's white.
Oh, no.
Didn't you read the rider? So my poor son must have been like, here we got a full show at Place des Arts, and how's he going to get Dionne Warwick over there? Dionne looked at him, Barry looked at Dionne, they kept looking at each other. After what seemed like ever, Barry said, Dionne put her hand around and said, Barry, let's go in your dad's car. And they went in the car.
Oh, wow.
Now, a couple of weeks after the concert, I was in New York with Dionne's manager, and I told him the story. And he said, don't tell me Dionne got in your white car. I said, listen, come on, somebody's got to tell me the truth. What is this all about? And he told me a terrible story. Dionne, a few weeks before, had bought a brand new white car for a relative of hers. The relative got in the car, crashed, and died.
Oh.
And Dionne said, I'll never get in a white car.
Oh.
So that was quite a sad story. And in the end, it's...
But she must have looked at Barry and saw something in his eyes and said, I'm gonna help this kid out.
Thank goodness. And at the end of the concert, which was a phenomenal concert, she got a 5-minute ovation even before she sang her first note. So at the end of the show, she said, Mr. Kagan, it was really a pleasure to work for you. You and your family are so nice. And I said, thank you. And I said, since you're being so complimentary, maybe I can ask you a favor. Your relative is Whitney Houston. Is there any chance you think you can help me bring Whitney to come to Montreal? And she said, well, Whitney's just finishing a movie. She said she's getting a little bit better. She said, I'll be in New Jersey next month with Whitney, and let me ask her. Maybe I can help bring her to come work for you.
Okay. Yeah.
Of course, I got a call from Barry. I was in a beach in Jamaica after that with my wife, and Barry said, better go turn on CNN because Whitney's not coming to Montreal.
That's
sad story.
Why don't we play I Say a Little Prayer from Dionne Warwick?
Oh, great song.
The moment I wake up, before I put on my makeup, I say a little prayer for you. While combing my hair now, and wondering what dress to wear now, I say a little prayer for you. Forever, forever, you'll stay in my heart, and I will love you forever. little prayer for you. At work I just take time, and all through my coffee break time, I say a little prayer for you. Forever, forever, you'll stay in my heart, and I will love you forever and ever. We never will part. Oh, how I'll love you together, together. That's how it must be to live without you. Would only mean heartbreak for me. I say a little prayer for you. I say a little prayer for you. Forever, forever, you'll stay in my heart, and I will love you forever and ever. We never will part. Oh, how I'll love you together, together. That's how it must be to live without you. Would only mean heartbreak for me. My darling, believe me, for me there is no one but you. Please love me too. I'm in love with you. Answer my prayer. Say you love me too. Why don't you answer my prayer? You know every day I say a little prayer. I say a little prayer.
Dionne Warwick, I Say a Little Prayer on CJAD. My guest, Sheldon Kagan, who's announced his retirement after 50 years in the music business. We got more great stories to come, and I know that you have your favorite Canadian group, which is Lighthouse, and we're going to play something from them.
Yeah.
Let's come back in a bit.
This is On the Record with Jason Rockman.
On the record on CJAD, my guest, Sheldon Kagan. Your favorite Canadian band is Lighthouse. Why Lighthouse?
Again, they were from my early era.
Okay.
I just loved them. I love the fact that most of the bands that were coming out were 4 or 5 musicians, and here now you got like 11 people in this band.
Yeah.
You know, got sax and trumpet and trombone, the whole horn section, 2 sets of drummers. I mean, wow, this was a different kind of a rock band.
Did you ever get a chance to work with them?
I did. I brought them to Place des Arts
Okay.
with another group at that time called the Whackers.
Okay.
Who were an American group, and it was 2 completely different kinds of groups, and yet it was a phenomenal concert.
Tell me a bit about what Lighthouse were like live.
They were, again, just energy. When you can have like a dozen men on stage performing in unison, the timing, the arrangements was so different. Because, you know, basically before it was like piano, bass, and drums and guitar. And this, they had all of that, but with a whole other element thrown into it. They just put on an incredible show.
Let's play One Fine Morning.
Great.
It's Lighthouse on CJAD.
One fine morning, girl, I'll wake up, wipe the sleep from my eyes, go outside and feel the sunshine. Then I know I'll realize that as long as you love me, girl, we'll fly. And on that morning when I wake up, see your face inside a cloud, see you smile inside a window, hear your voice inside a crowd. outside and live our dreams. We'll buy candies made of stardust, and little dolls dressed up in moonbeams. And everywhere we go, we'll laugh and sing. I kiss you morning, noon, and night. And all the universe will smile on us, 'cause they know that our love is finally right.
Lighthouse, one fine morning on CJAD. My guest Sheldon Kagan. What made you get into the bridal world?
Well, it was 1980. I had a whole slew of DJs and bands working for me. Mm-hmm. That part of the business was going wonderful. But I said, how can I take it to another level? How can I get more gigs? How can I get more weddings?
Right.
Hey, I have an idea. I'll do my own bridal show.
Right.
So in 1980, I rented the ballroom of the Holiday Inn Point Claire.
Okay.
And I did my first show. I formed a company called Le Salon de la Mariée.
Yeah.
And I advertised it as everything for your wedding, honeymoon, and future home. And we probably had maybe 100 brides, maybe 30 vendors, but I wrote weddings. People were saying, hey, this jockey is good. Let's book him for his wedding.
Right.
His wedding. Our wedding.
Yeah.
So after that, I said, let me go to a bigger venue. So the next year I rented the ballroom of the Sheraton Center.
Okay.
And for 2 years I did it at the Saint Sheraton, and it was a great success. And then in 1983, the Palais des Congrès opened, the Montreal Convention Center.
Yeah.
And I approached them, and I became the first public show to do a trade show there.
Wow.
And I've been doing my Salon de la Mariée for 35 years.
Now, is this something that you want to continue doing?
Well, as far as Sheldon Kagan and Sheldon Kagan International,
Yeah.
I won't continue as a promoter. I won't continue as an entertainment company. But yes, I am hoping for the Salon de la Mariée to continue. My son Barry and Marlene were models in it from the moment they can walk. This past year was really exciting. My grandson Turner, who's 15 months, walked down the runway with me and Barry, which was just such a deja vu experience. And I will know in the near future, but I'm hoping the Salon de la Mariée will continue.
I know. I went and I got some ideas for my wedding, and we rented our dinnerware from Bravo, and so it was a great experience to be able to go there and find all your stuff in one spot, which is always
and it's so good for a bride because they want to learn so much. It's the biggest day in their life. I'm sure from your wife, you know that. You know, she put a lot of energy into this and a lot of time, and probably dragged you along to a lot of places. But it's a big day, and you want to do it right. So coming to a wedding show, you find everything right there.
When we come back, more with Sheldon Kagan. This is On the Record on CJAD.
Great songs, great conversation. On the Record with Jason Rockman.
On the Record on CJAD, public figures and their musical taste. My guest this week, Mr. Sheldon Kagan. You say that you brought Artie Shaw to Montreal in 1984, and then you have a good story.
Yeah. Artie Shaw is an incredible person. I believe he was married to 7 wives. You know, Lana Turner, Ava Gardner, some of the biggest movie actresses in history. He had retired, and I just felt, wow, it would be a wonderful experience if I can bring him to Montreal.
Yeah.
So I was able to reach him through his private manager at that time, had a good rapport, and said, rather than come into a concert at Place des Arts, because, you know, he plays clarinet, and it's not an easy instrument to play at a certain stage in your life. I said, why don't we do a dance at the Queen Elizabeth? So I rented the ballroom of the Queenie, and I did an evening of dinner and dancing with Artie Shaw. So I ended up picking up, like I did all the performers, at the airport. And when I got to the airport and he came out of customs, he came out with a lady who had to be probably in her late 20s. I said, ooh, okay, that's interesting, but that's okay with me.
Yeah.
Fine. And I said, you know, you've been on a flight from LA. You guys must be hungry. Can I offer to take you out for dinner? You know, can I take you to Moishes or Gibby's?
Yeah.
And he says, well, yeah, we are kind of hungry, he said, but do you like chicken, Sheldon? I said, well, it's not about what I like. I mean, whatever you like.
Yeah.
And he says, well, do you play cards? And I said, a bit. He says, why don't we go to your house? We'll order chicken. You can invite some of your neighbors in, and we'll play cards. And I said, are you sure that's what you want to do? He said, yeah, that'd be great. So we got in the car and went to Dorval, got into my house, took off our coats, got on the phone, and I called some of my neighbors. Now, if they wouldn't have known me better, they could have said, this isn't going to happen. But boy, you never saw some neighbors fly over quick to a neighbor's house. And I think there was like 10 of us sitting around my dining room table with Côte St. Luc barbecue.
Yeah.
And we played cards for hours and hours and hours.
With Artie Shaw.
Wonderful man. And he talked about his history, and some of it didn't talk about his other wives, but I can understand that. And we did the event the next day at the Queenie, and then I picked him up the next day at the airport and just bid farewell. And it was he had dozens and dozens of albums, this man.
Yeah.
He was one of the best recording artists of all time.
Yeah, and you ate chicken with him and played cards.
Chicken and played cards.
Well, why don't we play Stardust?
Oh, yeah, wonderful song.
Artie Shaw, Stardust on CJAD. Artie Shaw and Stardust on CJAD. My guest Sheldon Kagan. So now that you've called it quits, I mean, I want to ask you what's coming up, but what is coming up?
Well, a couple of things for sure. One of them is I'm going to start writing my book.
Okay.
You can see just from the time we've spent here, there's no shortage of stories.
Yeah.
I've accumulated incredible stories. I have 12 albums of pictures and contracts and letters that I've accumulated from performers, from people whose weddings I've done when I started, charity organizations. So the stories are there. I want to accumulate that. I started already accumulating, more, but the book will happen for sure.
Okay.
I'm also going to offer myself and go out on speaking engagements that I can go out and talk to students and schools and organizations and talk about motivation and how following your dream, going out there and doing what you want to do and just not let anything stop you.
Well, and especially when you can talk from the experience,
for sure,
being the 18-year-old kid that took the gamble.
I'm going to do that. I'm a grandfather now. I've got my grandson Turner. That's been a phenomenal change in my life. Everyone said, wait till you're a grandfather. And I sort of said, okay, but it's true. It really is fun. So I'm going to travel a lot. I'm going to, I always traveled, but always for like 1 week vacations.
Yeah.
Now if I want to go away for a month, I'm going to go away for a month.
So you're going to try to enjoy your life.
Yeah, and I've
not that you haven't enjoyed it.
That's it. But it's going to be a different enjoyment. I don't know what the future will bring in relation to me and entertainment. I can't say that if I ever get a call from XYZ promoter that I have a rapport with, that maybe I might not do something with this person. Is there a charity organization that's going to reach out to me and say, look, we could really use your help? So music has always been part of my life, and it'll stay part of my life. But I'm going to enjoy the retirement. I'm really excited.
Well, two things. If you want to get rid of those records.
Yes, sir.
No problem.
Will you pick them up yourself?
I'll take them, yeah. And second thing, I give it a year and you're back to work.
My wife will not be happy to hear that, Jason.
I want to thank my guest, Sheldon Kagan, and thanks so much for coming in. It's been a lot of fun talking to you about this stuff.
I've loved it.
I want to thank my producer, Fernando Gelso, and until next week, keep the music flowing.